Imagine, for just a moment, that you're sitting in a beautiful, acoustically perfect concert hall.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
You are listening to a live symphony, and for 20 straight minutes, it is the most glorious, transcendent music you have ever heard in your entire life.
Just completely lost in the bliss of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Entirely captivated. But then, at the very last second of the performance, there is a dreadful, ear-piercing screech from the stage.
Oh, like a microphone feedback or something.
Yeah, speaker blows out. It's just this horrible noise. Now, if someone asked you about that concert later, you'd probably say that the screech ruined the whole experience.
Sure, yeah, that makes sense.
But here's the crazy part. Did it actually ruin the experience?
It's such a brilliant kind of counterintuitive question because logically, mathematically, the answer is no.
Right.
You still had 20 minutes of absolutely glorious music. That time actually happened.
It's not like the screech reached back in time and erased the pleasure from your life.
Exactly. What that screech actually ruined was your memory of the experience.
And that brings us to a wildly fascinating insight about how our brains actually work and, well, how they trick us.
Because we like to think that we make decisions to maximize our actual day-to-day happiness.
We assume we're trying to maximize our lived experiences. But the research we're looking at today points out that we don't do that at all.
Not even close. We actually make decisions to maximize the quality of our future memories.
Yes, we have this remembering self inside our heads that acts like a dictator, just completely overriding the experiencing self that is actually out there living our lives minute to minute.
It really changes how you look at your own choices.
It does. And welcome to today's deep dive. We're really thrilled to have you with us for this one.
Today's mission is incredibly ambitious.
It is. We are exploring a massive stack of material. We've got book summaries, deep academic analyses, and even some fierce scientific critiques.
All centered around the groundbreaking work of Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman and his collaborator, Amos Tversky.
Specifically, we're unpacking the monumental concepts laid out in Kahneman's defining book, Thinking Fast and Slow.
The goal of this deep dive is essentially to map out the hidden architecture of your mind.
We want to explain exactly why humans so predictably make, well, entirely irrational choices.
And more importantly, give you a vocabulary to recognize when your own brain is running a con on you.
Because once you see the invisible strings pulling your decisions, you really can't unsee them. You're going to start noticing them at the grocery store, in your investment portfolios, everywhere.
So to build that vocabulary, we have to start with the core of Kahneman's framework.
Right, the dual process architecture.
Exactly. He proposes that the human brain operates using two very different operating systems running in your head. He metaphorically calls them System 1 and System 2.
Let's look at System 1 first. This is your fast, automatic, involuntary system.
It's always running in the background.
It's the system you use to read a giant billboard on the highway, or to drive your car on a completely empty, familiar road.
Or to instantly know the answer to 2 plus 2.
What's really crucial to understand about System 1 is that it operates on what Kahneman calls the law of least effort.
It requires essentially zero metabolic energy to run.
Highly emotional, heavily associative.
And it is constantly, quietly building a model of what is normal in your world.
Think of it as an evolutionary survival tool, right? It's designed to continuously monitor your environment and react instantaneously.
Without you ever having to consciously think about it.
But wait, if System 1 is that powerful and energy efficient, why did we even evolve System 2? It almost sounds like System 2 is just a bottleneck.
That is the million-dollar question. We need System 2 because System 1 is terrible at novel, complex situations.
Yeah, okay.
System 2 is the slow, deliberate, effortful, logical part of your brain.
When you think of you, your conscious identity, the voice in your head, that is System 2.
You have to call on System 2 when you need to, say, parallel park a car in a really tight space with traffic waiting behind you.
Or if I asked you to multiply 17 by 24 in your head without a calculator?
And doing that math problem feels physically different than just knowing 2 plus 2.
Oh, absolutely. If you were to actually try to multiply 17 by 24 right now, your body would physically react.
Your pupils dilate, your heart rate goes up.
Your blood pressure increases.
Yeah.
System 2 takes real biological energy to run. It literally burns glucose.
And because of that immense energy cost, System 2 is inherently lazy.
Very lazy. Most of the time, it just acts as a passive rubber stamp.
Mindlessly endorsing the gut feelings, the quick associations, and the impulses that System 1 is feeding it.
And because System 2 demands so much energy and has such a strictly limited processing capacity, when it gets overloaded, things go completely off the rails.
We can become literally blind to the obvious.
Kahneman points to the famous invisible gorilla experiment to illustrate this.
Oh, I love this one.
In this study, viewers are asked to watch a video of people passing a basketball and to count the exact number of passes made by the team in white shirts.
Which sounds simple, but keeping that tally requires intense, focused System 2 effort.
Precisely. And because System 2 is so maxed out counting those rapid passes, a staggering number of viewers completely miss a person in a full gorilla suit walking right across the middle of the screen.
They just walk right through, thump their chest, and walk off.
And when they're shown the video a second time without having to count, they are shocked. They cannot believe they missed it.
It just goes to show that we are not the hyper-rational, fully aware creatures we think we are.
Attention is a highly finite currency.
System 1 is actually the one driving the bus most of the time, and System 2 is just the passenger who mistakenly believes they're giving the directions.
Let's actually test this out on you, the listener, right now. We'll use a classic example from the material called the bat and ball problem.
Oh, this is a great test.
Here's the scenario. A bat and a ball together cost $1.10. The bat costs exactly $1 more than the ball. So how much does the ball cost?
I love watching people encounter this problem for the first time.
I've got to admit, when I first read this, a voice in my head immediately screamed, 10 cents.
It just feels so obviously right.
You see $1.10, you see $1, you do the simple subtraction, and you get 10 cents.
You're in very good company there. The data shows that over 50% of students at elite institutions like Harvard, Princeton, and MIT made that exact same mistake.
But that intuitive voice shouting 10 cents is your System 1, and it is entirely wrong.
Let's walk through the math so it makes sense.
Okay, so if the ball costs 10 cents and the bat is $1 more than the ball,
The bat would have to cost $1.10.
right, add them together, the $1.10 bat and the 10-cent ball, and your total is $1.20,
The real answer is that the ball costs 5 cents.
which makes the bat $1.05, bringing the grand total to perfectly $1.10.
What happened there is that your System 1 jumped to an intuitive, highly appealing answer.
And your lazy System 2 just accepted it without bothering to do the elementary school math to check the work.
That mental shortcut is what psychologists call a heuristic. System 1 relies on these heuristics to save time and energy.
But while they are efficient, they lead to massive, predictable errors.
And one of the most fascinating errors is what Kahneman calls the narrative fallacy, combined with a total misunderstanding of regression to the mean.
To explain this, the material uses a brilliant real-world example, the Sports Illustrated jinx.
The infamous jinx. The long-standing myth in the sports world is that whenever an athlete finally makes it onto the cover of Sports Illustrated magazine, their performance almost immediately declines.
For decades, people assumed they were cursed, or that the fame went to their head, they got overconfident, and they stopped practicing as hard.
System 1 demands a coherent story. It hates randomness, so it invents a causal reason.
The curse or the inflated ego. But the truth has absolutely nothing to do with curses or egos. It is just pure, cold statistics.
It's a concept called regression to the mean.
Think about what it takes to get on the cover of a major sports magazine. You have to be having an absolute peak performance.
Maybe the best month of your entire career.
But any peak performance is a combination of immense baseline skill and a significant amount of temporary luck.
The skill is constant, but the luck is highly variable.
So mathematically speaking, their next performance is highly likely to be worse.
Simply because it's regressing back to their long-term average.
The incredible luck they had leading up to the magazine cover naturally dissipates.
There's no curse, there's no loss of focus, it is just statistical gravity.
But our brains deeply prefer a juicy story over a boring math equation, so we invent the jinx.
It's amazing how consistently and predictably irrational we are.
And here is where the material gets exceptionally interesting, especially when we look at how these quirks apply to our money.
Oh, yes.
For centuries, traditional economics was built entirely on this theoretical concept of Homo economicus, the perfectly rational human being.
Economists built their entire models assuming that you and I always act like walking spreadsheets.
Perfectly calculating the optimal utility of every single financial decision we make.
Which is a beautiful theory until you actually meet a human being.
Kahneman totally shattered that idea of the perfectly rational actor, and he actually won a Nobel Prize in economics for doing it.
Developing what he called prospect theory.
Prospect theory fundamentally rewrites how we understand human valuation. The core concept is that we do not value money in absolute terms.
We value it relative to a reference point, which is usually whatever our current status quo happens to be.
Think about it this way. Imagine you're buying a $100 pair of shoes, and someone tells you that you can save $10 if you drive 15 minutes across town to another store.
You'll probably do it. Saving 10 bucks on a $100 item feels like a massive win.
But now imagine you're buying a $1,000 laptop, and you can save $10 by driving across town.
You probably wouldn't even bother asking for the discount.
But rationally, economically, it is the exact same $10 bill.
It will buy you the exact same cup of coffee regardless of how you saved it.
It shouldn't matter at all what the total purchase price is, but our brains process the value completely differently based on the starting number.
And that relativity leads directly to the most famous and probably most impactful principle of prospect theory: loss aversion.
The psychological pain we feel from losing something is significantly stronger, usually about twice as powerful as the pleasure we feel from gaining the exact same thing.
To put some real stakes on that, imagine I offer you a simple gamble on a coin flip. If it lands on heads, you lose $100 out of your pocket.
Ouch.
If it lands on tails, you win a certain amount. Kahneman's research shows that most people will absolutely refuse to take that gamble unless the potential gain is at least $200.
You require double the upside just to offset the psychological dread of losing the $100.
This deep-seated fear of loss creates what they termed the fourfold pattern of risk preferences.
Because of loss aversion and the bizarre way we weigh probabilities, our behavior becomes wildly inconsistent.
Let's say you're facing a guaranteed sure loss. Suddenly, you become highly risk-seeking.
People will take crazy, desperate gambles, just hoping to avoid the pain of locking in a guaranteed loss.
You see this in stock markets all the time, when people hold on to plummeting investments, hoping they will bounce back.
But then flip that scenario around. When we are facing a sure gain, we suddenly become highly risk-averse.
We will happily take a smaller, guaranteed payout just out of the fear of being disappointed if a larger gamble doesn't work out.
And it gets even stranger when you look at the extreme edges of probability. Think about lottery tickets.
We gladly buy them, which is us irrationally overweighting a minuscule, almost non-existent probability of a massive gain.
But then those same people will turn around and buy highly expensive extended warranties and premium insurance policies.
That is us irrationally overweighting a minuscule probability of a loss.
We are simultaneously risk-seeking and risk-averse, depending entirely on how the options are framed to us.
It's all about the framing.
Now, if our brains are so prone to jumping to the wrong conclusions and falling for these framing tricks, it raises a really uncomfortable question.
What happens when the world-class scientists studying these brains make the exact same mistakes?
That brings us to some incredible drama within the scientific community, because as foundational as Thinking, Fast and Slow is, a decade after its release, the entire field of psychology was hit by a massive earthquake.
Known as the replication crisis.
This is a vital part of the story because it shows how science self-corrects.
During the replication crisis, independent researchers basically went back and tried to redo famous psychology experiments from the past few decades to see if they could get the same results.
And unfortunately, certain chapters in Kahneman's book completely failed to replicate.
Specifically the ones dealing with a concept called priming.
The most famous example from the book is the Florida effect experiment. The original study claimed that if college students were asked to sit in a room and unscramble sentences containing words related to the elderly,
Words like Florida, gray, or wrinkle.
they would unconsciously walk slower down the hallway as they left the building, compared to a control group.
It's a mind-blowing idea that our physical bodies are subtly primed and manipulated by just reading words on a page.
It is mind-blowing, but it might not be true.
Later, researchers dug into this and found an R-index of 14 for the chapter containing those specific priming studies.
Hold on, an R-index of 14. What does that actually mean in plain English for someone who isn't a statistician?
Fair question. The R-index is essentially a metric that measures how replicable a study is. Basically, how much we can trust the results to happen again if we repeat the experiment.
Out of 100.
Yes, a perfect score is 100. A score of 14 basically means it has virtually zero reliability.
Wow.
The walking slowly effect wasn't real, or at the very least, it was nowhere near as powerful or consistent as originally claimed.
The initial studies likely had sample sizes that were just too small, leading to statistical flukes that look like major discoveries.
So how did Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel laureate, react to finding out a chunk of his defining best-selling book was based on flawed science.
He didn't get defensive. He didn't write angry op-eds attacking the critics.
No, he actually went to the comments section of a psychology blog and publicly admitted his mistake, stating clearly, "I placed too much faith in underpowered studies."
It is a profound masterclass in intellectual humility.
He actually demonstrated his own theories in real time. He used his deliberative, logical system 2 to override his own defensive, ego-driven system 1.
He accepted the new data, updated his worldview, and moved forward.
And the pushback against the book doesn't just stop at the replication of specific studies.
Right. There's also a major theoretical critique from Gerd Gigerenzer, another highly prominent psychologist.
Gigerenzer argues that Kahneman fundamentally misinterprets human rationality.
Gigerenzer champions a concept called ecological rationality. He basically says, look, our ancestors didn't survive the Pleistocene era by doing complex probability math in their heads while a tiger was chasing them.
They survived by recognizing patterns, reading frequencies, and making incredibly fast judgments.
Gigerenzer argues that what Kahneman labels as biases and errors aren't actually broken flaws in our mental software.
They are highly evolved, adaptive tools.
So we aren't broken calculators. We're survival machines that are just a little out of place in the modern financial world.
Exactly. Gigerenzer points out that when researchers present information to people in natural frequencies, the way we would actually encounter data in the wild.
Many of these so-called fallacies completely disappear.
We are highly efficient frequency processing machines.
It's fascinating to see two absolute titans of psychology view the exact same mental shortcuts and come to opposite conclusions. One sees a dangerous flaw to be overcome, the other sees an evolutionary masterpiece.
It really is.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener, navigating your actual life? Despite these academic debates over specific priming studies, the overarching framework of System 1 and System 2 has totally reshaped how we design the modern world.
And you can see this applied everywhere through something called nudge theory.
Which was developed by behavioral economists Richard Thaler and Cass Sunstein.
Nudge theory is all about understanding System 1's profound laziness and leveraging it to help people make better choices.
Because System 1 operates on the path of least resistance, humans will almost universally accept whatever the default option is presented to them.
Therefore, if you intentionally change the defaults, you can literally change society without ever restricting anyone's freedom to choose.
The classic success story here is the 401k retirement plan.
For years, companies had an opt-in policy.
When you got hired, you received a stack of paperwork and you had to actively fill it out to start saving for retirement.
It required System 2 effort, reading forms, picking funds.
And because of that friction, participation hovered around a dismal 49%.
But when policymakers simply flipped the default to opt out, meaning you're automatically enrolled on your first day unless you specifically fill out paperwork to stop it, they leveraged human inertia.
And the results were staggering. Participation rates skyrocketed from 49% to 86%.
Nobody's choices were restricted. You could still opt out if you wanted to. But the outcome changed massively just by rearranging the architecture of the choice.
We see the same incredible power of framing in healthcare. Doctors have found that if they are discussing a surgical procedure with a patient and they frame it as having a 90% survival rate,
they get significantly higher patient consent than if they frame the exact same surgery as having a 10% mortality rate.
The objective medical facts are absolutely identical.
But System 1 reacts emotionally to the word survival as a positive gain and completely panics at the word mortality as a terrifying loss.
Which brings us to how you can protect yourself from your own System 1. Can't turn it off. It's always running in the background.
But you can train yourself to recognize high-stakes situations where System 1's overconfidence is likely to lead you into a trap.
There is a brilliant technique for this called the premortem.
How does the premortem actually work in practice?
It's fantastic. Before you launch a big project at work, or before you make a major life decision like buying a house, you gather your team or your family.
And you sit down and imagine that a year has passed. The project has failed spectacularly. It is an absolute, unmitigated disaster.
Your task is to write a detailed history of exactly why it failed.
That is so clever because System 1 naturally wants to be optimistic.
It wants to ignore red flags and assume everything will be fine.
By forcing yourself to assume the failure has already happened, you engage System 2 to actively hunt for the flaws, the risks, and the blind spots that your intuition was happily glossing over.
As we wrap up this deep dive into the hidden wiring of our minds, We've spent a lot of time looking at the biological quirks, the evolutionary shortcuts, and the predictable irrationality of human programming.
We are creatures ruled by heuristics, easily manipulated by framing, and deeply averse to loss.
And all of this brings us right back to where we started with that concert hall and the dreadful
Right,
screech.
the difference between the two selves.
Exactly. Kahneman points out that you essentially have two identities. The experiencing self, who lives your life in roughly 600 million 3-second psychological moments.
And the remembering self, who keeps the memories and actually makes the decisions.
It's what Kahneman calls the peak end rule.
Our remembering self judges an entire experience solely by its most intense moment, its peak, and how it ends.
Completely ignoring the total duration of pleasure or pain. That's why the screech at the end of the concert ruined the memory, even though the experiencing self had 20 minutes of pure joy.
It's a completely unfair system, but it's how we're built.
Which leaves us with a final, rather provocative thought for you to mull over. If your remembering self makes all your choices, but your experiencing self does all the actual living,
Whose life are you really building?
are you sacrificing your day-to-day, moment-to-moment joy just to curate a museum of good memories for your future self?
We spend so much time planning the perfect vacation photo, we forget to actually enjoy the beach while we're standing on it.
Challenge yourself to step back this week. Notice which self is driving your decisions today, and try to fully inhabit your experiencing self before the moment becomes just another memory.